I hope we're going to keep you awake and hopefully have a little bit of fun. I met Tony a couple of months ago at Cybos in Frankfurt, right? And we were together at a panel, and after the panel, he told me some good advice about how to keep the crowd engaged. And one of those advice say, don't prepare a question, just grill people on stage, and that's how it's going to be entertaining. So this is what we're going to do today with you guys. Thank you very much for being here, Tony.
Nice to be here.
Well, I'll start maybe by asking to introduce yourself a little bit, but I guess I have a little bit of echo, but I guess it's just on our side. Can you hear us well? Okay, awesome. So Tony, you spent like 20 years at Citi. You're probably one of the most TradFi person today, and at that conference, maybe you could walk us through like what was your haha moment, and how you came up with Ubyx.
You're right. I spent 30 years in TradFi, so you can burn me at the stake as an offering to the DeFi gods, if you like. I mean, I'm up for that sacrifice if it will be help the cause. But my epiphany was, look, I'd been working in a big bank, Citibank, and the banks had been told by the regulators, the US banks had been told by the regulators, don't touch public chains. So the OCC, the Fed, the FDIC said, keep off the grass. And then in November 24, there was the US election. And it was clear to me the morning after the US election that picture would change. So the first realization I had was banks would have to start engaging with public chains. Now, there might be some people in the audience who don't think that's a good thing, but actually, I think there's a very productive place that these two things come together, Web3 and TradFi. It doesn't take away from anything crypto or DeFi or peer-to-peer, it adds. And that point, the point at which I'm working towards, is when every bank and fintech on the planet offers wallets that are connected to many chains. If you want to have a self-custodial wallet, have it. But if we really want there to be mass adoption, then we have to recognize that banks and fintechs have customers that trust them. Yeah. In today's world, you cannot get a wallet from your bank or your fintech. Generally speaking, there are exceptions to prove the rule, but generally speaking, you cannot get a wallet from your bank or fintech. I want that world to come into being where you can get a bank wallet or a fintech wallet connected to public chains.
Wow, superb. And what do you think right now are the blocker for that? Because, as you said, after the election, the Clarity Act is still having a little bit of bump in the road, but we've made so much progress on the regulatory side, so.
Stablecoins. So you can imagine that the banks were in an environment where there's a big keep off the grass sign. Now, if the regulator removes the keep off the grass sign, do people start having picnics? Do they start having barbecues? It takes them a little bit of time to get overcome. But there's a forcing function, and that forcing function is stablecoins, because the banks don't want to be disintermediated by stablecoins. Stablecoins live on public blockchains, and therefore the banks and the fintechs have to occupy that space or they get disintermediated. So stablecoins are the forcing function that make banks and fintechs offer wallets.
That make me think, how do you sell stablecoin to banks? Because as you said, it can be disintermediated. And so how do you sell that to them?
The easiest sell in the world. It's easy to sell stablecoins to banks and fintechs. And to the extent that people in the audience want to join in this mission to get banks and fintechs to adopt Web3 technology, here is the sales pitch. You know, how do you get a bank to do a wallet? Here's the conversation with the bank. Do you believe we're entering a world of tokens and chains? There's nobody who says no. Do you know which token will win or which chain will win? There's no one who can say yes. So the insurance policy, these people are risk managers. The cheapest insurance policy is you get a wallet. Because once the bank or the fintech can offer a wallet to its customers, whichever token comes, whichever chain comes, it's able to transact in those instruments. So this is a very different go-to-market than the crypto industry has been trying in the past. Here's what the crypto industry has tried in the past. I am a chain. I go to a bank and I say, I'm the best chain.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
And they hire the most charismatic salesperson that they possibly can. So when you're in a bank, you hear 15 charismatic people saying, I'm the best chain. And what that does is it creates a computation that needs to take place on the bank side that takes 3 years. So a far superior go-to-market for the industry is, we don't know which chain will win. We don't know which token will win. But if you have this wallet infrastructure, you're prepared for a world of tokens and chains. Again, I know it's a DeFi audience. Use your self-custody wallets. I use self-custody wallets myself. But just allow your second cousin and allow the corner store and allow the big business to use a wallet provided by a bank or a fintech. All that does is it creates the acceptance network that we need for our instruments to flourish. If we want stablecoins to win payments, not just within crypto, but the whole payments target market, the forcing function for that, or the thing that enables stablecoins to win payments, $2.5 trillion of opportunity, is if every bank and fintech offers a wallet. So this is the go-to market from this industry to TradFi needs to be done in a different way. Don't try to convince a bank that your chain is the best chain. This is a very narrow and dumb way of trying to get finance on chain.
Yeah. I remember also you saying to the bank, go where your users are, and in 5, 10, maybe even shorter, like they're going to be on those systems. And
right.
So you better, be in here. And I heard that actually last week when I was at DAS in New York, when there's other institution and people saying, well, actually the banks are really listening to where their users are. They're like I would say a product company like anyone else,
yeah.
But if people are using this, they're going to start positioning. And it's very interesting so what you're saying is really like not the Trojan horse, but I would say really like the entry point for institution and banks is through like the wallet infrastructure.
The wallet infrastructure is the common denominator. It's the cheapest insurance policy that a bank can buy. It's the first thing that they should buy. But then on top of that, they always want to know what is the use case. For some reason, we've taught ourselves, like the banks have the senior people in the banks, they think a smart question is, what is the use case? I think when you're dealing with a general purpose technology like blockchain, it's a really dumb question, but they want to know the use case. So again, we need the simplest use case possible, and that use case is receiving stablecoins, not issuing stablecoins. So here's the dynamic. One of the favorite ways for banks and fintechs to make money is foreign exchange. Any bank or fintech outside of the US that catches a dollar stablecoin and converts it into local currency makes FX. There's a ton of FX to be made. There are billions of dollars of FX to be made. And you might say, well, I don't want that revenue to go to the banks. But that's the business case for them to get wallets. Once the banks and the fintechs have got wallets, there's a global acceptance network for tokens of all kinds. Then the games really begin. Then Web3 wins. Why does Web3 win? Because ours is the general purpose technology. The bank account, SWIFT, ACH, credit, debit cards are the special purpose technology. The special purpose technology doesn't win when the general purpose technology is ubiquitous. So we all want, do we all want traditional, do we want finance to come on chain? Well, I think a number of parties do want finance to come on chain. Let's get our shit together in terms of go-to-market. Don't give the traditional institutions a computation that takes them 3 years. Give them a computation that takes them 5 minutes to say yes. Yeah. We want to get them to yes.
But then how do you, because usually, you know, like the banks, they want to also like own the infrastructure. So
who does? Who wants to own?
The banks, they're going to be willing to have, you know, ownership of the infrastructure. And we've seen some of those move in the past, you know, with Quorum and some other of those, you know, I would say consortium chain. And they can be a little bit frisky, say, well, we're going to deploy some assets on a public infrastructure. And so how do you answer to those concerns when they come and say, well, whatever is going to be that chain, L2, Ethereum, or even another ecosystem, they might not be very confident about deploying their asset on those public infrastructure, and they want to own it. So
let them go through their stages of realization. Mm-hmm. You know, if most of the banks, well, who are doing anything at all, they start on private permissioned. Again, the keep off the grass sign has been removed. You're starting to see them. Okay, maybe I can have a barbecue in the corner, or maybe if I can picnic over here. They're not really occupying the space yet. But the entry point is, once they can give wallets to their customers, those wallets can connect to multiple different chains. The door has been opened irreversibly. So we need to plot how to get these wallets into every bank and fintech on the planet. They don't want to be disintermediated. Stablecoins are coming, they're scared. We want to give them something easy to say yes to. The wallet is the first thing. And the use case of make foreign exchange is extraordinarily compelling for them. So that's, look, this isn't just talk. Whatever we see on the stage doesn't matter. This is happening in the world. There's the forces have already been unleashed. The banks and the fintechs already have the sniff of fees and FX in their nostrils. If you're friends with the wallet providers, you'll know that the RFPs are like that from banks and fintechs. This is already happening. So my firm belief is that within 3 to 5 years, it's going to be very, very easy for you to get an address from your bank or your fintech. And what that means is the world of tokens and chains, the general purpose world, wins. The old special purpose rails become less used. This is firm prediction. This is math. This is the commercial interests. This is the future is the migration of traditional finance to Web3 rails. Now, we can go about it the easy way or the hard way. And what I do think is that a lot of people in the Web3 space, they got a shitty go-to-market. They don't know how to sell to banks. Is swearing allowed?
I think there's definitely some challenges, but we're getting more and more used to talk to institutions. At least that's also like the work that we try to do at the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, and that's why we go to those events. I think one of the thing I was talking to you before is I preach to my industry, which is like Web3, Ethereum in general. I say it's time to get off your bubble and to go and see the world. I think it's there is of course that at those values, you know, like the cyberpunk movement and everything, it's very important where it comes from, the also fundamental research. But I think it's also very like important for us to start going and do like the normal sales cycle. Go on the floor and talk to those institutions, re-explain why do you need a blockchain? Go to some PSP that never heard about a wallet. I was last year, you know, at NASHA, ACH conference in $86 trillion is like SEPA of the United States in New Orleans. And I would go on the floor from booth to booth and ask, you know, like, how do you look at that technology from your perspective? And some people, they just like look at me saying, what, those scam stuff, those NFT, those whatever you can. But I feed out of that because I think it's super important, like those people that you talk to, and when you get to, after maybe 5 or 10 rejection, there is one that's going to be, interesting.
Yeah.
I would like to learn more. And that's, I think, what we need to do more, like collectively.
Well, talking is one thing, but in Hollywood, they say, show, don't tell. And lots of the folks in traditional finance have never seen a stable coin. You know, the people who are regulating, last week I saw a news item that the Deputy Governor of the Bank of England, Sarah Breeden, was talking about banning unhosted wallets. She's never seen an unhosted wallet. She doesn't have a wallet on her phone. So there's a fundamental experiential or empirical gap. The folks who we want to take on a journey, we have to show, don't tell. And I think we're very good at white papers and telling, and less good at show.
Well, speaking of showing, you like founding like Ubyx about like 10 months ago or a year, right?
Incorporation 12 months ago.
12 months ago. You raised like some money recently. I think, I'm curious, can you tell us more about what stage you are right now?
Sure. So I had this realization that banks and fintechs would adopt wallets, and so the other key thing is what people were saying around that time in terms of the market structure of stablecoins was that stablecoins they have a power law that means there's only going to be a few issuers, and US dollar stablecoins were going to take over the world. I knew this was bullshit. I knew this was nonsense. I knew that the market structure for stablecoins would be many to many and pluralistic. So this is like, I knew it because every time in history when a new form factor of payments has come into being, that's how the market has developed. So if there was a time, let's say in the late 1960s, where there were only 2 credit cards, and they were American US dollar credit cards. Now, if Twitter existed then, everyone would be saying, oh my God, the world is going to be dominated by 2 or 3 or 4, and there's no space for anyone else. And how can we have more credit card issuers? Otherwise there would be fragmentation. And how are we going to make these things interoperable? All this bullshit would be talked about the credit card market at that point in time. But if you fast forward to 2026, there are 16,000 issuers and no problem. And it's a pluralistic market structure. And every currency has its credit cards. And you took your credit card from New York, from JP Morgan, you spend it in the hotel here, no problem. The hotel doesn't give a damn about the issuer. So believe it or not, the market structure for tokenized money is going to be many to many. And what does that mean? Many issuers and many people who want to accept it. And this is the key insight about singleness of money. Singleness of money means the person who accepts an instrument doesn't give a damn about the issuer. When you take your JP Morgan credit card to pay the hotel bill, the hotel doesn't give a damn about the issuer.
True. They didn't give a damn.
So tokenized money will be a many-to-many network. We need to get to the place where the issuer doesn't matter to the receiver of the tokenized money. And that's the point at which they will become ubiquitous. That's the point at which tokenized money will take the entire payments TAM, the full $2.5 trillion of market opportunity. You know, people think that stablecoins are profitable at the moment because the big couple of players make $20 billion. You know, whoopie-doo, what's $20 billion compared to $2.5 trillion? So the place for us to drive the industry, everyone on the planet can use a self-hosted wallet, or a wallet provided by a bank, or a wallet provided by a fintech, or a wallet provided by an exchange. Those wallets connect into multiple blockchains. Then whatever token is the best is going to win. Stablecoins, tokenized deposits, tokenized money market funds, other real-world assets, all. The beautiful thing about our world is that we have a general-purpose technology where the tokens can represent whatever the hell someone wants them to represent. The adoption of that technology is a function of access to wallets. Access to self-custody wallets at the moment is infinite, but there's a barrier from lots of people and businesses who don't want to use self-custody wallets. So when we bring the hundreds of millions of account relationships, the billions of account relationships into the wallet world, then tokens win and chains win. And by the way, it's not chain versus chain. There's plenty of room for lots of chains. The chains will find their own niches. So this makes it all the more ridiculous when 15 charismatic salespeople go into a bank saying my chain is the best chain. They're just pushing back adoption.
So I guess you said one thing, like we have.
Sorry, you were going to ask me about my company, but you know,
yeah,
more interesting.
No, but the you know, like the best stablecoin. It's like I'm curious to know, like, what do you think is a good stablecoin? What is a good stablecoin and a bad stablecoin? And maybe also another point is, you know, we have a lot of people that are building like cutting edge, you know, DeFi product in here. And I would be curious to know, like, what would be your advice of like a mindset and framework if they want to address more institutions and banks,
right,
to, you know, for their go-to-market.
The good stablecoin is the one which is accepted everywhere. So here's the thing. There's probably lots of stablecoin issuers, and they all think they're competing against the other issuers, and they can, except on acceptance. So the thing that needs to happen for issuers to be successful is they have to realize that there needs to be a mutualized acceptance network. Mutualized acceptance network. Now, let me give you some, Love, Circle, USDC, great. They've had to pay people to accept their coins. Coinbase, $900 million, Binance, $60 million. You know, the crazy comparison is in the stablecoin world, the issuer pays for acceptance. In the credit card world, the accepting network pays the issuer. When you take your JP Morgan coin to the hotel, JP Morgan get paid 1.5%. They didn't pay the hotel to accept JP Morgan credit cards. They pay JP Morgan. So we need to move to a world where the issuers wake up and realize that we need to build a mutualized acceptance network. Now, in the history of payments, the alternative is this. So you have this thing called Circle Payments Network. In the best case, it's American Express. American Express is single issuer proprietary network. That's a one-to-many. Worst case, it's Diners Club. Diners Club was laughable because it was you could never guarantee it was going to be accepted because a single issuer can't build global acceptance. So the network that works, the network that hyperscales, is many to many. any off-ramp can accept all tokens. And then you get you get quadratic scaling, you get telephone network-like scaling, and then tokenized money wins. So, eyes on the prize for the industry. The prize is the $2.5 trillion of revenue available in the payment space. The prize is reached when we have mutualized acceptance for our instruments. And it's very hard for an issuer to get their head around this. The issuer cannot matter to the recipient. The issuer matters to the sender. You chose JP Morgan credit card because it's given you certain attributes. So you care about the issuer. You're the holder of the token. But when you go to the hotel shouldn't give a damn about the issuer.
Yeah, well, right on time. I think, I don't know if we have time for a question. Do we? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Tony. But I guess if there is any question in the audience, we'll take any. And you see, you've been crystal clear. There is one over there.
Sure. What do you view as the biggest blockers to this mutualized acceptance network today?
One significant blocker is banks and regulated players have to figure out whether using a blockchain is an outsourcing from a regulatory perspective. So if a bank wants to use Amazon Web Services, it sends Amazon something called a third-party risk management questionnaire, and Amazon have to get all the questions right, otherwise the bank won't use them. If I want to use Ethereum, where do I send the questionnaire? So the answer to that is regulators should make it clear that banks and fintechs are welcome to use public permission networks and don't have to apply those third-party risk management frameworks. If that blocker were removed, I believe we would see a huge wave of adoption. So for anyone who's involved in policy, this is a very important rock to crack. We have to make the argument that banks and fintechs can use public permissionless networks without treating them like an outsourcing.
That's a long education path. I was with a bank recently on a dinner, and we were discussing about the upgrade of Ethereum. And one of them when there is the upgrade like Fusaka in December, well, how do we know that the $1 billion that we have here is still going to be here tomorrow? And I was like, well, you get the point. I never thought about this perspective because I know the whole process, how it's super thorough. I have friends in a protocol development team, and I know that space. But then I took his position and said, well, indeed, how do you know? Do you have guarantee if you're a business that you deploy asset, do you have real money on that public infrastructure that when something happens is going to be present tomorrow? And I guess it's on us, the industry, to bring some confidence in those institutions by education and more discussion. And I think going to them, explaining how it works and how the counterparty risk is reduced and not increased. But it's also what is exciting about the ecosystem. It's completely novel. Never been something that public infrastructure
Can I tell you something also which the traditional finance has known for a long time that the blockchain industry hasn't yet figured out? In traditional finance, people clearly understand what's in the competitive domain and what's in the community domain. And I don't see that much evidence of that distinction being made in the blockchain domain, because there is clearly a point at which everyone can agree that we want to get to. All banks and fintechs have merged with Web3. That's the point that we want to get to. So there are strong elements of that which are a common endeavor. And knocking over this type of issue, like, let's win this, if we win this one argument, that is a major obstacle removed. That's something that the whole industry should rally around. Let's win this one argument. And let's think about the go-to-market, because the industry at the moment, has created a lot of heat and not a lot of light. Meet the customers where they are, take them on a journey, ask them things that they can say yes to in the short term.
Is there more or no? Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Tony. It was a pleasure, as usual. And you can see us off stage if you have more questions.
Thank you.